KOMP 2.3, where Vegas rocks. It's Sylvia, and today I have Leigh from Pop Evil.
Awesome. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, of course. How are you doing?
I'm
Lots of
doing good. I'm doing
lots of
good. Doing
exciting
good.
things coming up for you.
Right, right. Excited. Exciting time for Pop Evil for sure.
So when this interview was available, I was like, I need to talk to Leigh because I have a memory of you
Okay.
from years ago.
Oh wow.
So this was, I think it was like 2009,
Okay.
2010, and
Yep.
Pop Evil were in studio to do like a lobby concert.
Okay, yeah.
And like afterward, you like thanked our promotions director at the time, thanked our
Yeah.
program director at the time, and then you like came to the front desk. So I was a receptionist back then.
Oh wow.
And you said, "Thank you so much for having me." And I'm like, I had nothing to do with this, but you're welcome. Like every
Got to be
single time,
grateful, man. I'm grateful. You got to be.
every time that I hear Pop Evil or I hear
Yeah.
Leigh or anything, I think of that moment. I tell that story over and over again because
I love it.
I thought it was so adorable and so sweet. And like you said, it just shows how humble you are.
Yeah, it just I always and probably just coming from Michigan, I always uh and maybe even in rock, like I just remembered even when I was on the grind, like
Mm-hmm.
even the lowest, the newest, it shouldn't be lowest, but the lowest kind of on the podium sometimes, man, you got to be grateful because like you said, you just don't know, number one, where they can end up, and number two, there's still people too, man. And I know how it would make me feel, and I love hearing you say that because I love that it resonated with you because you never know, right? You meet so many
Mm-hmm.
people and you try to be grateful, and it's better than, right, like we walk out, you see us, we look at each other and we walk out. It's like, it's like too cool for school rock star stuff that we just
For sure.
we're not rock stars, man. Like we're Michigan blue collar dudes, bro. Like it's just not. Oh, sorry, I'm calling you bro too. Like I'm so used to my nieces and nephews. They're
That's
like, yo,
fine.
bro. I'm like, oh
No,
my
I'm a
god.
bro. You can call
I'm
me bro.
always got it, but it's just like, it just doesn't take much. It's a people business, right? And talking to
Yeah.
people sometimes, like it just makes it more fun. And I think for me personally, being on tour, and even thinking back in those, especially in that era, it's like, oh, we're on the tour buses all day, every day,
Yeah.
just seeing somebody, let alone a girl. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, great, let's talk to you know what I mean? So it was just like, oh, this is, just seeing
Yeah.
dudes all the time and being a hot
Yeah.
mess in Walmarts, so it was just that's awesome story, man. Thanks for sharing that with me for
It
sure.
was so cute. So that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to ask. Like, do you practice or try to practice gratitude often in your career? Because I can only imagine the music industry can be so draining and just like take everything out of you. Like it's I
It
bet it's very
is.
hard.
And I think there's truth to that. Like when you meet your favorite celebrity sometimes and they might be grumpy or in a bad mood, it's easy to be that because sometimes, if you're traveling on tour bus, for me personally, I get motion sickness easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as the older you've gotten, it's like, oh, it's even worse, So it's just, some days, are better than others. And sometimes you're not in the mood, especially sometimes when you do the morning shows. Like say we're coming into comp to play at 8 in the morning. You're like, oh, and you feel, but I try my best. There's a saying that I have with the band that's called, embrace the awkward. And sometimes, like when it feels awkward, that's when you need to step into it. Like
Yeah.
if I'm just meeting you and I walk in the room and I'm like, okay, well, it's just me, or we're at a waiting room, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, and we're at a doctor's eye, and you're there, we're the only two people in there. It's kind of like, and I'm thinking probably what you're thinking, like, damn, I hope this guy doesn't talk to me. Like, I'm like, I hope this girl doesn't say it. So it's better than like you try to be like, yo, so just I hope your day's going good. Just something subtle that's like,
Yeah.
especially if it's a guy girl. I don't want someone to think necessarily I'm trying to hit on him because that gets
Uh,
easy to do when you're in the rock world. Not
sure.
that I would or wouldn't, but that's the worst, right? When it's like, especially probably for a girl, when like you're one on
Mhm.
one with a guy, it's like, oh gosh, here it comes.
Yeah.
So it's just you try not to put yourself in that, but especially for being in a rock band, because people, that's what they assume. We're always trying to pick somebody up, so it's a little frustrating. But
Yeah.
just like you said, try to be gracious, man, when you get those moments, and let somebody know that it's not has nothing to do with being in a band or being in music. It's just the type of person I am, and I want people to know that probably more so being a lead singer because we get judged very easily. That I want someone to at least know whether they like the band or not. Obviously, I'd love them to like the music, but worst case scenario, I'm always like, well, at least they might be like, well, at least cool. So hearing you say that moment is a testament that hopefully I was doing something right all those years ago, for
I
sure.
mean, it
Yeah.
impacted me what, 16 years? Are we
Well,
coming?
that's incredible. And
It's
now look at you. You're moved up too. So
yeah.
that's like
I'm
double that.
talking
So it
now.
worked perfectly right in a way. That's awesome. Congratulations, by
Thank
the
you.
way. That's
Thank
that's
you.
exciting, man. You put the
Yeah.
time in, and you've kind of grown up with us then. I feel a little bit of a bond there.
A
That's
little
great.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
I think we have something in common where it's
Mhm.
it's hustling. And I want to go back to 2001
Yep.
Michigan.
Yep.
Um that's, when Pop Evil started. But you have a background in basketball.
I do. Yeah,
So, of course, basketball requires the teamwork and the dedication and
yeah.
putting hours into your craft to get better. How did that help you approach into making a band?
Yeah, it's a longer story. I'll try to give you the sum up. But I mean, obviously, I was bald. I mean, I was everything about me. I wanted to play for the Pistons or the Lakers. That was my dream. And I'm only probably a generous 5'10". I'm gonna just call it
Yeah.
5'10". I'm not 5'10". I'm probably more like 5'8". But I once had a fan. Sorry, side note, just reminded me of the story. This fan, the meet and greet era. This fan was so cute. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I love you," and she gave me a hug. And after she looked back and she goes, "Man, you're a lot taller on YouTube." I'm like,
Oh
I go, I didn't
no.
know I was supposed to be that tall. I mean, thank you, YouTube, for being tall. It was just a cute story. But getting
Yeah.
back to the grind, you're right, man. It was a grind, and you chase. I guess it taught me how to chase my dream, right? Because so many people around you are like, oh my gosh, of course, no chance you're going to play in the NBA, and blah blah blah. And of course, I never believed him. I was like, I don't care what you say, I'm going to push. And then that turned into when my basketball career ended, then it kind of fell into the music. Suddenly I started to realize, and this is kind of an interesting story. The girls that my buddies were dating were we call jersey chasers, right? They just were chasing the jersey. They just wanted to date a guy on the team, right? And it wasn't flattering to me. And then when you play the guitar, it was amazing how not only girls your age would be interested, but I could sit on the bed and my grandma would sing Pantera with me when I was playing it. It was just so
Oh, that's
it
cute.
just amazed me that like, and my grandma wouldn't even know who Pantera was. She just
Yeah.
dan 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 and
Hmm.
great
Hmm.
respect. You talking to me? She would just do that because
Yeah.
I got a kick out of it. And the point of that is the fact that you could play music and all generations now were coming together. It just really it was it rom it was rom, it rom, was romanticized for me. I was like, wow, I have to do this. Like I want to do this, and it turned into me, grinding, like you said, hustling to record my first CD. I remember I wanted, and I'm a big family guy, so like I remember I wanted to record my first CD so my brother could hear it. My brother was a younger brother, by the way, and he was my worst critic. He hated everything I did. Right? He's like, this sucks. Like, what are you gonna do? Like more like Rage Against the Machine or something? He was
Yeah.
more
Yeah. Yeah.
metal. At the time he was more metal than me. But so trying to get his approval and hustling and grinding, and then of course as it got more serious, it was like trying to get the deal and get myself out of Michigan. And then I'd always hear that story. Was actually just talking about it last interview, how you'd always hear that. It really upset me all the time. You'd always hear that. I thought I needed to move to Vegas or
The bigger
LA or New
cities.
York,
Yeah.
like I got to be seen. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. And the people that I trusted were always like, no, if you're good enough, they'll come to you. And I was like, oh, I hated that, because that means I had to be good enough for them to come to me. And
Yeah.
then, it took about 10 years and we started to become that big fish in the small. It was kind of like that movie Project X. Like we'd play a house party or we'd play a show and it would just be packed. I mean, it was my college years, so everyone was young and signal and everyone would come out to the shows. It was a different era too, right? Like rock was still king in a way, right? Like Shinedown was pumping on the airwaves, Theory of Dead Man. I mean, you name it, those kind of bands from my Papa Roach, it was just a Buck Cherry. I think Crazy Bitch was just big. It was just, and I'm from Michigan, which is a test market for a lot of things. So, especially cereal, I always joke about because we always had the best first cereal first, with the cereal capital being in Battle Creek, Michigan. But concerts would always come through GR, so Grand Rapids, where I lived, and we would always sneak in or get in free. Again, we were cousins, and then dude, this was a crazy story. We had Crossfade, which is coming back, by the way, and I love the Crossfade guys.
Yeah.
Excited to get them back. But I remember they played our hometown, which was Muskegon, Michigan, which is about an hour away from where I went to college, and we were on the bill, so we were direct support for national. We're like, wow, this is awesome, and they came and played, and we had more fans. I mean, it was just crazy pop evil mania back then. And I remember them talking, Ed and the boys, Mitch, they were all like, man, this is crazy party you guys are throwing. We've never played with someone, the opening band that had that many people out. This is crazy. And I'm like, well, why don't you come back and go? Because we had a Pop Evil house, again, like Project X. And I'm like, why don't you come, hang with us at the Pop Evil house? And they're like, well, we're off. Let's go do it. And I remember we had a lot of cop police friends, in the time, different era, by the way. It was a
Yeah.
different time.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
and we had them at the hot tub, and we had some of the police guys come out to the tub and kind of fake that we're gonna get at least in trouble or get arrested. What do you guys
Yeah.
doing? Get out here and outside. And they were like, They were like, oh my God, freaking out. And next thing you know, the cop was like, yo, hand me one of those beers, and cracks it and drinks it. And they're like, oh my God, you guys like rule this town. And it was just such a
That's
fun era.
awesome.
And then we ended up getting our record deal, and things changed. We had to be a little more tame. But we kind of came up in that party era, which was kind of a blessing and a curse. I mean, obviously it was a blessing because it was fun, but it was
Mhm.
a curse because it kind of derailed us and it slowed us down a bit, like we weren't as focused in those early years as we are now. Certainly, we were still gracious and we are still humble, but we didn't know. We just kind of were learning. When you're from Michigan, we didn't have any cliff notes. There was no track record. We were just kind of doing what we thought the other bands were doing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I guess this is what we need to do. And obviously now I'm so inspired by a lot of these younger bands because they're health conscious. They're super talented in the studio. They're not going to studios that are expensive, by the way. They're doing it on their tour bus or doing it at their own studios, saving money. And they're really putting all the extra effort they have into their live show and really building it. Where for years before, in the early days, we just play in front of our backdrop. You know what I mean? That's just not acceptable anymore. I mean, people are going to see, they're not necessarily going to see concerts anymore. They're going to see Vegas shows. I mean, you think about it, like now, concerts, when you go see some of your favorite bands, I mean, you're getting fire, you're getting a cinematic experience, man. Like you are getting moved. And if you don't do that, then you're left kind of in the wake, And so we've had to play a little bit catch up and being like, wow, like why weren't we putting more effort into our shows and diving into it? And even though we were playing hard and we were coming after the shows were still great and energetic, but people expect more than that, and it's growing. And I love that. It's like there's a perfection now that fans want. I want, if I'm going to pay $1 to go see my band, I want to be entertained. I don't just want to be sang to. You know what I mean? I don't just want a concert and see these guys jam on their instruments. I want them to prove to me that they believe in these songs. I want to see these songs come to life. And certainly, like, we look at that now as a band, like we want to, not only from the studio to the stage, we're writing these songs to really do our best, certainly financially affordable, that we can make these things come to life. And as we grow the band, we just want to keep investing and throwing as much as we can into these songs and making sure that live experience for the Pop Evil band is at the highest possible. So I know I probably sidetracked there for you for a minute.
No,
That's kind
no,
of
not at all.
the,
But I
the,
think,
the, the short version. Sorry,
yeah,
getting into, yeah.
the younger generation, I think, can always teach us something, especially like
Absolutely.
in this field.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And they're from a different time, right? They have different kind of anxieties, different sense of urgency, and this is where we live. This is the era we're living in. So the youth is kind of leading the way, and it wasn't, I always wasn't thinking like that when we were on the come up. It was like all these older bands are showing us the way, but really these older bands knowing now they're in transition, right? Like they are, and especially the era when we came up, these bands they're already financially secure. We came up in a time where, getting that mega money for hit songs or tours, it's gotten less and less over the years. So it's very difficult to really get a little bit extra money to invest in yourself or the band or the project. So, you have to make sure that you're doing everything to save and pinch, like whether that's routing the tours properly. You don't want to play Vegas tomorrow and then you're in New York the next day. And how are you going to drive that? You know what I mean? Or you're gonna have to fly. So guess what? That's going to be an extra expense. It's going to be a lot of compounding expenses on top of the next that can really make any tour going in the green very, very tough to do. So, and if you're not in the green, then you're not gonna stand the test of time. And certainly a lot of bands that came up when we came up are no longer here. So, we definitely feel fortunate that we're still here and still really pushing for the best version of Pop Evil still, we feel, on the horizon. But at the same time, we don't want to make the same mistakes that we made in the past. We want to be better, we want to be more efficient, and we want to be healthy, and we want to be grateful for those people. And hearing the stories like you just told me, that's like, wow, it's a testament that when we were doing those things and kind and being kind and being grateful, it just those stories stand the test of time. And that's
Yeah.
truly, if we're blessed to, our eighth album, if we're blessed to have any more, we want to make sure that we're making a difference in people's lives, because that's what people are going to remember, right? They're not going to remember that was a hit song, or oh my gosh, you sold X amount of records. They're going to remember, like, man, Pop Evil came through and we love those guys. They were great, they were
Yeah.
personable, they cared, and we do care. So it's important for us to, add to that and create more stories and memories for people like that. But at the same time, have fun for us, just really diving into the music and putting all our efforts away from our family and friends to make sure that when we are away, we're being focused on that rather than focused on party and things that might be more selfishly rooted.
Yeah, and especially if you're away from your family, you want to make things that, it's worth it. That's worth it, that okay, I'm not going to see, my kids or my wife or whatever, but I'm
Yeah.
making art that's going to benefit everybody.
100%, 100%. You want to be more efficient with your time, right? Like you want to feel like when you get done with tour that you left it all out there. You know, you don't want to be like, oh, well, I was wasted for half of it. And the thing when you have, success in any way, like people are traveling hundreds of miles to hear these songs. They're no longer our songs, right? They don't care necessarily that they're seeing me or the guys. They want to hear that song and they want to hear it perfect and they want to remember the stories that they have when they were listening to the songs, and was just talking to a gentleman that I was doing an interview with before you that he had thanked me after. He's like, man, I want to just thank you for writing Survivor. Like that's my daughter and my song and how I've survived in the radio business. And I'm like, wow, thank you so much for telling me that story. That's sometimes you don't realize in a tour bus with prison walls in a way that the tour
Yeah,
buses are that you're making a difference in people's lives. So it's so refreshing to hear that. And it gives you gratification that you're on the right path to hopefully making a small difference in a world where it seems like it's more common to pit people against each other, right? Like it's just
yeah,
it's just nonsense to me. In the music business, we need each other. It doesn't even matter without people like you and the fan base there in Vegas that's coming to see Pop Evil the next time we're in town. It doesn't work without people. So being kind and being grateful to them is just a human characteristic. It doesn't have anything to do with being in a band. So
Mhm.
super cool to hear.
So fast forward
Yeah.
2025, March 21st is when What Remains gets released. Produced by Cody from Wage War.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Cody did a couple songs. Drew Falk
yeah,
did a few. KJ and KJ and Zach did a couple. So this is like a slew of A-list producers on the
yeah.
project. So it was super exciting.
So I saw in an interview that you said it's the heaviest Pop
Yeah.
Evil record. So I kind of wanted to delve. So it's not only heavy in sound, but heavy in theme. So I want to talk about sound first. What makes this Pop Evil record like the heaviest?
Well, certainly our focus on guitar tones, making sure that it's upbeat, making sure that we're pushing the boundaries on ways that we haven't with the guitars. I mean, being a radio band in the early days, it was tougher to get heavier songs played the same way. It's got to be the perfect song, it's got to be the right thing, the dynamic, and certainly rock radio's gotten heavier over the years, and we like to feel we played a small role in that as well with songs like "Waking Lions," "Breathe Again," and we wanted to push the boundaries a bit. We wanted to make sure that like how far can we go? I mean, we're all metal fans. So how far can we push, the metal instruments and how far can we push this heavy vocal with still being melodic and still being able to respect the old catalog and the fans that have been with us from the beginning. So certainly a challenge and but one that, it doesn't really there's no point in making more albums if you're just going to do the same record all over and over and over. Like you want to grow. I mean, we want to push the boundaries of things we haven't done before to make our live show better. We want to make sure that when you come hear us live, like you get a collection of songs that are not only great but that take you on a journey, peaks and valleys, not just one level all the way through. And but heavy guitars are fun, man. I mean, there's nothing more fun than playing a live
Crunchy
show and
guitars, man. I'm all
it's
about it.
just fun, man. So again, we're just trying to have fun in the studio, not trying to overthink anything.
So going into heavy themes, especially when it comes to mental health, it feels like what remains kind of, and I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but it kind of made you confront your depression or anxieties. Can you talk about that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that every album there's a song that kind of starts the process for you, and What Remains was that song for me on this record. And we were 3 or 4 songs in, and I remember my manager calling me. He's like, "Hey, man, do you understand what you're starting to write about?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Do you realize you got issues you're dealing with?" And I'm like, he goes, "I didn't know." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "I want you to go through and just read your lyrics. Don't listen to the music, just read your lyrics back and call me." And I did, and I was like, "Oh my God, I guess I didn't realize that I had all this like depression and anxiety, frustration, anger, all like because when you're a leader of a band, like you have to be positive. Like it's on to the next. There's people counting on you to for survival, pay bills, like just to be around. So I don't always have time to show that side. So as a musician, when you shut your eyes, you kind of like trust your soul is going to speak to you and just spill out what needs to be said. And certainly a lot of songs in the past I've written about we and it's easier to write sometimes about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and writing about getting people together to gather. That's certainly been, one of my strengths over the years. But this album, I've definitely shied away on writing about myself. But this album was just different. It was like, wow, it just kept coming out. And I think just being at where I'm at in my life, I just again, not try to overthink it. I'm like, okay, well then if I need to heal, then let's let it out. And if I need to heal, then there's got to be someone else out there that wants to understand and hear it from first person. Because even though like maybe we're together in a team, maybe we're together in a band, but like it doesn't work if I'm not 100% supportive of you and you're not 100% supportive of me. In order to get there, I needed to just get this stuff out. And once the band started to support me and really go, wow, like you need to push these boundaries, then I just was able to go no holds barred with songs like What Remains, which the lyric is, I am what remains. I'm on my death walk. I'm wishful thinking. There's a lot of this on this album that is basically me looking in the mirror and just like taking all those things that I hate about the business, I hate about my personal life that didn't work, that maybe I was frustrated with, and just being okay to just be like, it's okay to talk about that. It's okay to maybe not directly, but subtly, and letting my fans just find their own version of that so we can both know that we're not alone. And that, like, yeah, I feel like that too. I've had my world crumble around me, and I've had that choice to say, when I get outside that door and start to live my day, I'm what remains. What version of that is gonna, am I gonna take it out on someone, or am I gonna try to be better? So, that song was so powerful that it just, as the album was done, it was like, wow, like we have to call this thing What Remains. And when you look at the album art, I don't know if you've seen it, it's a volcano. And it's so metaphorical to me about how we're all similar as human beings to volcanoes. Like we're all one life event from blowing up and erupting and totally changing the trajectory of our life, and we have that choice. And that's what's a little bit scary sometimes, that like you have to make sure that we cage that and we keep that volcano dormant so we can be kind and be respectful to other people and understand that other people get mad too and other people get angry and they have that same choice that we do to not take it out on each other, but rather understand that there's one person out there that could be a best friend of yours. But if you don't open up your mind, body, and soul to let those people in, you never know what they can bring to your life. You never know what kind of amazing things that you can kind of create with just being open to just being just showing people a better version of yourself. So again, wanted to challenge people to try to take some positive out of this album, but it certainly is written from a dark perspective and darker tones for sure.
You mentioned that you, as a leader, you have to be positive. Did Prior to this album, did you kind of forget yourself? Did,
Yeah, I think during the pandemic we did.
yeah.
Like it was easy to, like, we were the first ones to go away, the last ones to come back. And I think for most musicians, the saying is don't get off the bus because you're not guaranteed to get back. And for the
Mhm.
first time during that pandemic, it was like we're all off the bus. Like for the first couple of months, you're like, okay, we'll be back in a bit. And then it turned into a year, it turned into a year and a half where it was like, oh my gosh, like what? And a lot of people left. Like people left, musicians left that were found out other ways to make more money or to be happier. It was like, wow. I mean, the music business is a grind. It's very up and down, and it's very up and down on your emotions. Like today, you think you got to figure it out. You're like, okay, wow, we're having success, and the next day you're forgotten. Nobody knows your name. Like it's a very cutthroat business. Like you have a hit song today, everyone loves you. Doesn't mean they're gonna love you tomorrow. Like nobody cares. Like they're on to the next. And sometimes that can be very very hard on your emotions. Here one day everyone's loving you and giving you hugs, everyone wants to talk to you, everyone wants to get a picture with you. The next day no one wants to do anything with you. They don't care. They're on
That's
to that next
rough.
thing. So it's real easy to, like, if you don't have your head on your shoulders and if you don't have something to really understand about what true appreciation is from your family and your friends, yeah, it can be. And fans are allowed to do that. Like fans are, they're trying to figure out their own lives, right? They and I think for a lot of musicians, it's easy to get caught up in that. And they're like, oh wow, like, wow, people really dig me, because a lot of us musicians are alone, and we're alone. It took us a lot of lonely years just to get where we're at. We had to basically be, the odd man out, because most of our friends weren't playing musicians and chasing trying to be in bands. So they weren't hanging with us. It got to a point where I was ditching my friends because they're like, hey, Leigh, you want to go hang out with us? I'm like, yeah, I'll hang out. And then, right around 9 o'clock, oh, I'm not feeling, I'm just going to go home early. And I go home and play my guitar and write
Mhm.
songs just because I was having more fun. So,
Yeah.
that loneliness, like kind of like, you know, you start to feel appreciated in ways with your success that if you're not careful, it can really lead to a lot of depression, a lot of questions, like for your sanity, which leads to why probably a lot of musicians are depressed. But certainly it was why I was depressed. So having these albums in a way to be therapy and remind yourself that like it's okay, man, to talk about these issues. Like you don't have to be perfect all the time. And I think for us musicians, me especially, you want to paint this perfect picture that you're good all the time, and it's not the case, man. Like we
Not
deal with the same
sustainable.
issues, yeah, that everyone else deals with.
Yeah. So a lot of newness with this album. Of course, you guys have your new member, Blake Allison.
Yep.
When was the moment when you saw him, you're like, that's the guy?
That would have been around 2007 when we first saw Blake play with Egypt Central, his other
Oh,
band.
really?
Yep, he's the drummer of Egypt Central. He's the singer of Devour the Day. And when we needed a new drummer, it was and we actually Joey's in our band, our bass player. He's also the bass player of Devour the Day and Egypt Central. So we had a good in with Blake but Blake wasn't playing the drums at the time. He was just focusing on singing and doing what he needed to do for Egypt Central and Devour the Day. And so we made the call, and Joey had kind of let us know he's like, Blake's down to be the drummer of Pop Evil, and I'm like, are you kidding me? But he hasn't drummed in years. Would he be down to do this? And I don't want him to quit any of his other bands. I want you guys to keep doing what you do. But I really, if he's open, would he even be the drum? Would he want to drum again? And of course, once I talked to Blake on the phone, he was like, not only do I want to drum again, I want to help lift Pop Evil and take Pop Evil to where it needs to be. And you've been so gracious to me to let me continue to do my projects. I want to be committed and show you that I can be committed not only to my project, but be committed to this project as well. And make Pop Evil part of my own. And once I heard that language, it was like wow. And he was a little rusty in the early day when we
Sure.
practiced, but he was so driven. Like that's one thing about Blake, like and Joey, both of them, they're so driven to be great all the time. Like if you see him 1 month, you see him a couple months from then, they're better than they were. They're constantly working and efficient. And that's what I saw in 2007 that I really wanted in my band was guys that just no matter what the cause, no matter what the day and they just wanted to be better. They want to grow. And every little waking spare moment they have, they want to invest it in themselves being better musically. And once we got the opportunity to work with Joey and Blake, both of them, it was like, wow, it was funny because Joey came first. And I remember saying to our managers that were like, well, let's call Joey and see if he'll play bass. And I was like, look, I don't want to call Joey because I know what's going to happen. I'm gonna fall in love with Joey. He's gonna quit. He's gonna leave Pop Evil for something. It's a waste of time. And then
Yeah.
Joey had called me. He's like, no, no, no. I want to be committed to Pop Evil. And I said, well, look, if you'll do that, I don't want you to, give up on your other projects. I want you to just because I'm a fan and I'm a friend of yours. And we kind of all actually our first tour, Egypt Central, they brought us on our first tour for Pop Evil. So I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for those guys.
Yeah.
And to have them now a part of this team, it feels like a super group in a way that there's a bunch of guys together that like know the grind. We've had success, we've had failure, and we've had we come up in that same era that we know how hard it is, and we know that like no matter what we do separate from each other, yeah, we might have some success, but there's a possibility that we can really do some special things if we stick together and support each other. And that language has certainly made us stronger off the stage, and we're looking forward to really our first album together, which again, another reason why this makes this my favorite album so far. And so excited about the future with these guys and what we can do musically together and look moving forward.
How have they, both of Joey and Blake, how have they influenced the style of Pop Evil? Like, have they changed up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they kind of came into a time when I really wanted to push Pop Evil and take it to a. I just want to push the heavier side of Pop Evil. We've never really been able to push the evil of Pop Evil. We've certainly been able to push the melodic and the alternative side of Pop Evil. And but we like look like it's time. Let's get our metal influence. And those guys are nothing but metal. They scream metal. So it was just like it was a natural progression. Once they were talking, we had some meetings together, and they were hearing where I was coming from, and I was hearing where they were coming from. It was like wow. And we had talked previously. I know we did a tour with I think Skillet and Seven Dust. I want to say a couple years before the pandemic, and we had talked about writing together because I mean I'm a fan of the writing style. I'm a fan of what they do, and I'm always looking for some fun collabs that can really trigger new melody or new ideas for me. And so it was just obvious that we wanted to kind of see what could happen, and this album was just it just came to fruition. It was just a natural progression to just kind of one thing led to the next, and their support, and I think they wrote a song called "Criminal" on the record for me, and once I heard that, it was like we're off to the races. Let's go, no hold
Yeah.
barred. So it's been fun, no doubt.
There was an interview that you did that I found really interesting. You said you'd have no problem releasing singles. Obviously, not the case right now, maybe not
Yeah.
in the future, but if it were up to you and you were in that kind of, I
Mhm.
guess, moment in your life, do you
Mhm.
think that you guys would have a theme or would you just release them as they came naturally?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how the specifics would look, but look, I mean, the old school part of me is I love doing albums because you want to leave your legacy, a collection of work. Like just as a fan, that's what I grew up with. But I think there's another side of me that like, man, it would be so much easier and more fun and more financially efficient to do 3 or 4 songs, and then you release a single, then you do, wait 3 or 4 months, do another set of three, then wait through it and do another set of three. And then after you've got a collection of 10, 11 songs, boom, put out the album. It makes more sense to me for fans to be, why do you want to buy an album of songs that you don't know when you'd rather buy an album of songs with songs you like that album? I mean? Okay, I want to buy the rest of that record. I like it. So it makes sense both ways. And certainly from a financial perspective, it would be more efficient that instead of wasting money, if you're going to release 3 songs, let's say, I would rather release 3 songs and get the maximum amount of budget to really make those music videos as big as possible, rather than 7 extra songs and now I got to figure out where am I going to put them in the set list. And wow, now we're wasting all. And sometimes you don't even ever play those songs, so they just become just kind of unique to that album, and they just sit there. So I mean, from a business standpoint, it would be way more efficient for me to do 3 or 4 songs, and then you can really put the rest of the budget on the music videos and really take that visual representation to another level. Because I mean, so many things now in social media are all about the music videos or the social the social media content, the short form. So it's just things are changing, things are evolving. So I mean, I'm all about whatever it needs to be and certainly trying that. But I do have a love for the album as well, and the full
Sure.
album, and putting together a collection of songs that really take people on a journey and take people on those ups and downs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future.
Yeah. So you did mention playing songs live. You do have a North American tour starting in
Yep.
April.
April 8th. Yep.
What are you most excited about bringing What Remains to the stage?
I'm first of all excited just about seeing the fans, man. I feel like you get to that place where I need that in my life, man. I miss them. I miss the energy. I miss their smiles. I miss their hugs. I miss their singing back to the songs. But then, of course, when you think about the new songs, and certainly What Remains has been out now for about 6, 7 months, so it'll be interesting. It's always fun to see kind of the newer songs get bigger and bigger with your fans as they get more familiar with it. So definitely looking forward to What Remains, but also equally as interested in seeing what songs make the set list first. Like, and once we get to rehearsals, we can really start to play the album for real, and for the first time, really kind of see, wow, like this song sounds really good live when we play it, or man, I thought this one was going to be awesome live, but it needs a little more work. So you kind of weigh the odds on what songs are the best now. And then you can really kind of juggle that with the old catalog to put together the perfect set list. And we feel like we got an idea of what that'll be, but you never know until you really get to rehearsals.
So off the new album, which song are you the most excited to play?
All of them, right? Because they're like your kids. But I'm super excited about the new single "Wishful Thinking." I mean, we've had so much great feedback on that song. It's just incredible now to really see people's reactions live. And so I'm excited for that one for sure. And then the rest, just kind of seeing what songs stick their heads up. I mean, I know I like Side Effects on the record too, Criminal that I mentioned. Really excited about those ones as well. So the list goes on. It's hard to pick,
Yeah.
but "Wishful Thinking" I'd say would be my favorite at the moment to get to play live.
Awesome. Well, before I let you go, we did start this interview talking about gratitude. So I wanted to know what you were grateful for. So it could be several things. It could be one thing. Like,
Yes.
there's no rules here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm grateful for the opportunity, to be still doing it all these years. Another eighth album. I mean, someone would have told me I would have had one album, let alone eight, and so close to the elusive 10. That's such a monumental number to have 10 albums. That'd be amazing. But
Great. Yeah.
certainly grateful for our fans that have been behind us all these years. I'm grateful for the fans that don't even know they're popular fans yet, that will come on board this year and years to come. So just trying to be look at things differently in life, glass half full rather than half empty. I mean, to be able to have an album released is some of the most exciting time about being in a band in general. So the label, grateful for our label putting these dreams together and going to finally put them in a print form, whether it's on the vinyls and the CDs, to be able to hold it in your hand. Something
Yeah.
that you spent a year and a half creating is so rare and so amazing that someone actually gave you money to put together your ideas and your creativity. Is so big thanks to our record label, for always being behind us, our managers again for being. So there's so much to be grateful for you guys and our friends and our supporters at Rock Radio. It's here we are again, man. It's just amazing. So can't wait to make more memories with you again, and show you more gratitude
Yeah.
again, and create more memories in Las Vegas. I mean, one of my favorite cities. So if it was up to me, we would just get a residency there, so I had an excuse to live there for a month or two. But I always get jealous of you guys in Vegas. I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous you guys live in Vegas. It's so cool. But as much as I would love to live, I do love Michigan, and
Of
for those
course.
3 months in the
Cool.
summer when you can be on the Great Lakes and do your thing, it's worth it to me. But it just tons to be grateful for, and be able to do an interview and talk about a new record is special, no doubt.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leigh, for taking the time to talk to me. Again, Pop Evil's 8th studio album, What Remains, out March 21st. And hopefully we will see you in Vegas soon.
Yes, thank you so much again for the support, and hopefully we can do this in person next time.
We'll come on over.
That's what we got to do. We got to play acoustic at the station, get those acoustic guitars out, and play some acoustic over there, and have some good times. So
I'll
it'll
be
be
at the
good. So,
receptionist desk, so I'll be at the
well,
front
I'll
desk.
come. I'll make sure I come see you. I'll make sure I come see you. I know you got to get back to your roots a little bit, give some homage
Yeah.
to you. I respect that. I respect it. I love it. I love it.
Well,
Well,
thank you so much.
yeah, Sylvia, thank you, and thank you for sharing all those awesome stories and kind words. And look forward to seeing you here soon.